forward it on now because the reason you're here, the reason the listeners are here, what we want to hear, we all want to talk about cars. We want to talk about photographing cars. When was the first switch to motorsport, and when did you first go, "Could take my car to the meet"? Was it just as a fan, and you were one of the many fans through the gates that were there with a camera, or was it like an accredited thing because you had that photography background?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of quickly transitioned from horse racing, and there was like a pretty big overlap. So when I was doing horse
Mhm.
racing stuff, I wouldn't, not just riding, but I was taking my camera and I was meet photographers at the races. And I got asked to shoot the Kentucky Derby one year. I think it was 2012. I did the Breeders' Cup, which is the horse racing
Mhm.
world championships that they usually host in um, Kentucky or California, and I covered that. And I met some photographers there, and one of them was like, hey, "Well, so what's your deal?" Like, I was 23 or 23 years old, I guess, and he was like,
Mhm.
"So what's your deal, kid? Like, what are you
That's
wanting to
pretty
do
good
with
going
this?"
though, from taking photographs of your fan in your 21st birthday to the Kentucky Derby, a Breeders' Cup weekend by 22
Yeah,
though.
yeah, it wasn't, yeah, it was pretty good, but it felt to me like just it felt like an unattainable goal to do car
Mhm.
racing stuff. Like, horse racing, I was already in it.
Yeah.
But car racing was, I don't know how I'm gonna get there. And so I met a bunch of people along the way with the horse racing stuff, and just meeting those people, they gave me some advice or, a little bit here and there. But, I had done some internships with a newspaper in Charlotte and then another one in Kentucky. And from those newspapers, I had done a tiny bit of coverage of car racing stuff. Like, it was dirt track racing in Kentucky or lawnmower racing in North Carolina. Just nothing serious. Like, it was track days at a
Mhm.
local track, like where, some guy was going around on his sport bike, or, some rich dude had his Ferrari 360 out. And that was, to me, that was like as close as I was ever going to get to Formula One
Mhm.
or car racing in general. And it wasn't until I was given my opportunity to cover a little bit of NASCAR with Getty Images. So
Mhm.
Getty Images is one of the biggest agencies in the world that covers not just car racing or anything, but sports or an editorial. And they
Love
also have some
love
of the some of the best photographers on earth too. Like, you might not
Mhm.
make the most money working for an agency, but some of the best photographers on the planet work with Getty Images. And I was able to work with them a handful of times on the NASCAR stuff with credentials. Um, I covered I think my first race was the NASCAR truck race in Charlotte in 2011, which is Kimi Raikkonen's first truck race. So that was his first NASCAR race that he ever did
Mhm.
during his sabbatical between Ferrari and Lotus, or after, I think it was,
I think it was Lewis, was
yeah,
it?
it was definitely, he was on sabbatical. So he wasn't
Mhm.
like driving an F1, but he was like, I just want to do NASCAR. And I saw on the entry list that he was running in Charlotte, and Charlotte's my hometown. I was like, great, this is amazing. So I just kind of cold called an agency in England. I sent them a Twitter DM actually, and I was like, "Hey, I'm in Charlotte, and Kimi Räikkönen is running the NASCAR race. Like, would you have any interest in having me cover it?" And they responded. They're like, "Yeah, that sounds really interesting. Actually, like, are you free? And what's your portfolio look like? Or like,
Mhm.
just all the basics." And so we ended up
Yeah.
making it work. They paid me not a ton of money, but it was enough at the time, and that was my foot in the door to car racing. And it was like really the stepping stone that I needed to say, like, okay, this isn't just horse racing I can do. This isn't just my swimming buddies I can do. I
Mhm.
can maybe do a little bit more with this, but I still didn't know if I could make it professionally into something that I'm going to make work for real money to support a lifestyle of, like, I don't want to work a second job. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Um, so it was still pretty daunting, but the car racing stuff, like, it was a very slow build, but once I kind of got on that train, it started running pretty quickly.
Okay. So how did you manage that? You said that there was a lot of overlaps. How did you manage that first year or so when, like you said, you're like, oh, I don't know if this is a full-time thing or it might not be paying out at a full-time thing yet because of just as you said with the soft skills, but it depends on who you know to get you these gigs more than it depends on photography skill. But
Yeah,
how did that year look for you? Was there a lot of back and forth between the two sports and just picking up things where you could, or did you have to
yeah.
do a more traditional job so
I
you had
was
your weekends free?
I was very busy because I had a traditional job as well. I was selling alarm systems full time. I
Okay.
was a customer care representative, so when somebody's alarm would go off, or or not work properly, I was the guy that they would call and yell at. Um,
Always a
you know,
fun job.
oh, it's horrible, but you know what? It teaches you a lot of people skills. I was also a
Yeah.
salesman as part of that, so you're not just selling, you're not just taking the customer calls that like they hate their system and can't figure out how to work it, but also, like they need something else. They
Mhm.
need to upgrade their system, so you learn how to be a salesman, and you're selling a product. But I kind of quickly learned like this isn't just a product that I'm selling. I can kind of convert this to like selling my product, which is a picture or pictures or a coverage
Yeah.
of an event or whatever it is. And I was dealing with the horse stuff, and which was it had me busy, but it wasn't enough to even like really pay minimal amounts of bills. Like it was
Mhm.
not enough. And the horse racing stuff just was a lot of fun, but I never saw it as the career that I wanted to end up in. And the car racing wasn't enough either, but I was starting to dabble a little bit enough in car racing that it was starting to take away from the full-time job that I had too.
Mhm.
So I left my full-time job in 2014 to be a full-time photographer. When it reached that point of, I now have too much time in car racing and not enough time on the side of like having a real job, and that was the hard part of like, I'm going to make this jump. I'm going to quit my job. This is when I need to do this. So
Wow.
yeah, it was really challenging and it was scary, but I think it very quickly made me realize like I'm in control of my destiny. I'm in control of my business. I'm not reporting to anybody other than myself. So all the success that I have or don't have, that's on me.
Mhm. And how did that first few months of the self-employment and I need to go out and find the work now, like it's not there in the office or at the center wherever you were. How was that in terms of the emotional ride as well as 'cause you said you get that rewarding factor of going, I am my own boss, I am this, but then all these external pressures that most work people don't have to deal with come in. How was that?
It was really challenging, but I'm a very motivated person in that like when I want something, I'm gonna go make it happen. I'm gonna make this work because I don't have another choice. So
Mhm.
because I knew that my photography work had taken away from my day job side, I knew that
Mhm.
there was enough there that I could survive at least for a little bit. Um, but also I knew that I had some opportunities with a few different companies and brands and magazines. There was a magazine in Charlotte that I still work for to this day that they were offering me, more full-time basis, like regular stuff. And, I wasn't going to get rich off of it, but I was going to make enough to survive, to feed myself, to have an apartment and a car and
Mhm.
do all the things that I wanted to do as a 20 something year old guy, um, travel and go on vacations and all that. So I could do all that and not have to rely on family to help support me or like be the catch net that I knew I didn't need. So it really was just about going to find clients, meeting people, go to every event or every race was an opportunity to get another client, to meet somebody else, to find something that might be a better opportunity in a week or a month or a year or 5 years. And all of those things just it really it was a slow build, like any business would be. It was a slow build, but it's just putting the foundation for success. Like you don't build the Empire State Building in a night. You do it over time in small pieces to get
Mhm.
to get what you see today.
I love that, and like you said, it wasn't ever to make you rich financially, but it made you rich in a time aspect and a passion aspect.
For sure. I wouldn't
As cringy as that sounds, that is the truth.
Yeah, but I couldn't
Mhm.
imagine going back to working for a company, working for somebody where I'm
Mhm.
just punching a clock or doing it because they tell me to, or this is how much you're going to get paid just because we say you're going to get paid this much. If I have a bad year financially this year,
Mhm.
like it's because I chose to have less clients, to be more at home more, or
Yeah.
just not doing my job properly. But it's not anybody's problem but mine.
I find that really inspiring. I love it when I hear stories about people who just bet on themselves and they just think, okay, so I'm going to make this in this situation. The only thing that lets this down is me. because I think it takes a real spur of guts, but it also shows a real commitment and dedication. I think that that probably would have spoken to a lot of your clients as well when they went, this guy he's clearly trusted himself enough in his skill, in his personality, in his attitude.
Yeah,
So
and
like that, and that transfers through to them when
I
they see
think
it.
it did, because especially when I was younger, I think they
Mhm.
could see like that motivation. But I'm also really aware that this job and the type of job that I have isn't for everybody. Like, not everybody that tries to be a photographer, tries to be a motorsport photographer, is going to be a successful photographer, successful motorsport photographer, because of the soft skills stuff that you talked about.
Mhm.
And that's something that I'm aware of, that you can't just assume that you take a pretty picture and it's going to be given to you, that it's just easy from that point on. It's the hard stuff after that that I'm very aware that, like, I'm not the most talented photographer even in this room right now.
Mhm.
um but I know that I'm going to work harder than most people are.
Mhm. And that takes a very brave thing to say in a media center where I know there's other people in that room.
Yeah, for
So
sure. I mean, the guy that's sitting across from me for race week is one of the best photographers on the planet, and the guy that's sitting next to him is like equally as talented. And there's 20 people in here that you could just look at them, and I would say I would kill to have their talent.
mhm.
Um, and maybe they would say the same about me, but I know that I'm jealous of their ability and their talent. And it's we all have our strengths, and you have to play to it.
Hey, thank you for listening to this clips episode on YouTube. And then if you want to hear the whole podcast, you can find them on Apple or Spotify, as well as the full video version on this YouTube channel, alongside all the other great content we produce on a weekly basis. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope to see you again on another clips episode or in the full episode podcast. Tweet us, tag us, let us know what you thought. All the links are down in the description. It means the world that you guys come and support us, so thank you very much.